Good morning, class. Welcome to LHS Club. I was thinking about Lancaster. I'm coming from Lancaster. Oh my goodness. This is the first time I will be on YouTube, I believe, or second time. This morning I would like to show a game of mine from chess.com. And this game is inspired by studying the classic games of one great chess player, American chess player. But before I go to that particular classic game, I would like to show you my game on chess.com against Luis Carlos of Horizonte, Brazil. So let's see this game. And the theme for this morning's class is about Blitzkrieg. How many of you know the word Blitzkrieg? When we think about that word, it pertains to quick, fast, swift attack, right? And all those things. But, you know, to go deeper in a Blitzkrieg, you need to have an element of time, right? And the element of time in chess is very important when it is measured in what we call tempo, right? And time matters so much. And when we put that in mind, we think about development. How to develop our pieces rapidly without wasting time on little pawn moves. So this is what we will try. I will try to show this morning based on my game. I'm white, and my opponent is about 1900. His name is Luis Carlos. The game went e4, e5, knight f3, d6. What we have on the board is a Philidor defense, right? It's kind of a solid approach for black to play something like this, disregarding development. The most popular is knight c6, correct? Let's see what went after d4, e takes d4. Now there are two ways to capture the pawny. If you were white here, how do you recapture? The knight. How many? There's most of you said knight. That is the best move in the position, the knight. But now, because of our theme is about rapid development, that gives me the idea, why not capture with queen. The queen? Another piece brings out into the game, right? Very good. And if somebody asks a question, why would you move the queen out so early in the game, right? Now, in every rule, there is always an exception. Great players are known to always know the right time to break the rule. I thought this, let me try to break the rule here. Queen takes d4. Of course, knight c6 is played, attacking the queen. And here, what should you do? Do you retreat? Do you back down? Queen a4, pin the knight. If that is your idea to pin the knight, why not pin it with another piece fresh out, right? Bishop, b5. And so you see here my thought and idea of rapid development or Blitzkrieg. An approach in chess that nowadays, nobody actually pay attention to this principle of rapid development. And later on, I will show you a game by Paul Morphy, a clear example of rapid development. See, after bishop b5, the knight is pinned. The queen doesn't have to move. It's centralized, correct? Black tried to break the pin with bishop d7. Okay, now the threat on the queen is really serious, correct? So, do we run away? Do we back down? What do we do? Do we retreat?
What about bishop and threaten his queen?
If you threaten the queen, he just capture your queen, right? And if capture with check, you lose a piece.
Bishop e3.
Bishop e3, you give away a queen. Take the knight. Now here, a lot of you will be frowning. Why do you surrender the bishop pair too early in the game? Remember, the past lessons I gave is the importance of the bishop pair. And now why did we surrender that so early in the game? Because it is the demand of the position. The position requires it, correct? So in order for you to keep your queen in the middle of the board. Next one, After capture, how should we proceed in development? There's two ways.
Castle.
Castle, or why not knight c3?
Oh.
Now, the reason here why I did not castle kingside yet, because we're giving ourselves an option to castle on the other side of the board with the rook creating a battery together with the queen. Right? So castling for castling's sake is not sometimes the best in the position. It has to be a part of a great plan. So knight c3 is very important. Knights are out. I like white's position here. Knight f6 was played. How do we bring another man out? Another pin, bishop g5. So you see white's disregard of the bishop. Are you mad of your bishops or something? They do something to you when you were young? No, I'm just joking. So white is willing to give up the bishop pair so early in the game. Bishop g5 is a very strong pin. All right, black reacted with bishop e7, and now here is our castling. Next move. Oh, tell me, how do you like white's position here? With the rook on d1, the other rook will be coming. Beautiful position. What I called a Blitzkrieg type of development. You never wasted time. If you can apply the same principle in your own chess game without wasting a single tempo, you will always be ahead one step of your opponent, right? And here, if you continue, if the game progress and you're always a little bit advantageous against your opponent, then you should have the better game, right? So here, after castle, black responded with castling as well. Now, if you're white here, how should you proceed? Rook h e1 should probably do the trick, right? But here, I would like to utilize the d pile advantage of white, blasting out open the board with e5. Now, I was thinking that hopefully if he captures, and after g takes f3, we don't need the rook on e1, but on the fresh new pile that was created on the g pile, right? So I was enticing my opponent to surrender your bishop on c6 with my knight on f3. However, there's a major threat here on the knight on f6. So he captured the pawn. Now, if you are white here, how should you recapture? Why? So there is what we call a threat on the queen on d8, correct? Now, black responded with this. If the queen moves that way, the bishop drops. If the queen moves e8, there will be a traffic there on the e pile, and the f pile, on the back rank of black's position. And after rhe1, then black's position is very difficult, really. So instead, he played bishop d6 to block the attack on the queen. Now our queen is under attack. Where is the best place of the queen here? We see a5, we see f5, we see e3, e2, or even e1.
What about bishop takes f6?
Bishop takes f6 to run will be exchanges of queen. Bishop takes, bishop takes, bishop takes. What we have is an intermezzo, a check here. Before he recaptures the bishop, and it will be about equal. Right? Plus, if you are an attacker, remember here the rule of thumb, do not trade pieces. Right? Keep your pieces alive unless it is demanded or required by the position. So here, instead, where is the best place for a queen? We learned that in development 101 of your pieces. The queen has to be in the centermost part of the board. Where is the center? Right here, we go back to d4, where it watches every area of the board. Am I right? So after queen to d4, he played a6. Now this little pawn move is, I cannot understand the idea. It probably doesn't contain anything. But a 1900 player against me is, I'm 2300 here on chess.com. Of course, it's very difficult for them to come up with similar plan that a master is creating over the board, right? Some of them really did not know how to proceed after a short plan. They're good in the opening, don't get me wrong. 1900 players, they're very good in the opening. But when it comes to middle game, you will see the need in the game plan and their strategy that there's a lot of work needed. And I've been there because I was a 1900 before, right? So, like a6, probably is decided to move the rook so that the pawn won't be left and free. So here, after a6, one an accurate move, a6, we proceed to attack black with knight e5. Now, what is the justification of the knight plunging itself into the middle of the board, right? Attacking the bishop. One more, enticing black to capture on g2. Enticement, right? A provocative move. So that after bishop takes g2, we have rook g1 with gain of tempo. And now we have a very good open avenue, the black king. So black did not concede. He did not capture this pawn. However, he captured this knight. We recapture back. Oh, you see here, we went back to our original intention from the opening of creating this deep pile, making it very strong for white. And here, white keeps going back to that idea. With just one idea in mind, right? And you stick to the idea, stick to the plan, and it drives your opponent crazy. Right? Why these guys keep going back to this idea of the deep pile? Right? Because that's the only idea I know in this game. So he went wrong with queen e8. Okay, now what class? Find the best continuation for white here.
Take the pawn.
Take the pawn on c7 looks very good, probably good enough to win the game. Who said bishop takes knight? Remember, if you are an option of capturing which area of the board, choose the one that is closer to the enemy king. All right? This is the queen side. This is the king side. Of course, during an actual game, you're wondering which one should I capture? The one close to the enemy king, because the object of the chess game is checkmate. So bishop takes knight. After pawn takes, he has to recapture.
Why? Why doesn't he just take the queen?
If he captures the queen, then white wins a
Pawn.
no, a piece.
Wait, how did that work?
Exactly. I captured the knight on f6.
Oh, right, and didn't take back.
Yes, exactly. So after bishop takes knight, black has no choice but to recapture with a pawn. Okay, class, find a good continuation here for white. White is already winning. Queen takes f6 is probably enough to win the game.
Check. Queen check.
G5.
Very good, Rita. Queen g3 check, not capturing the pawn. The reason is we will capture this with tempo or with check. For the moment here, what makes this move very strong is the position of black's queen. We will see that the queen is in a box. It cannot go on the deep pile because of the rook. Now, imagine here, if the queen made a check, and after king move, you could place a rook there. Where does the queen go?
C.
You now see that in spite of the length and the avenue of E and D pile, the queen finds itself in a very precarious position to find a place to go. There's only two, B and C. B8 and C8, correct? There's nowhere else. And you see any other place for the queen?
No, and that puts the queen out of the action.
You gain a tempo. Again, tempo. The queen bring another piece fresh into the battle. After queen C8, we go back to haunt the F6 pawn with Queen f4. How do you defend it?
King.
The king was played, but now you will see we always go back to the original intention in the game. The rook lip on e3 creates
Trouble.
a devastating threat of mate in 2. Correct? Now, why not the other rook? See here. Does it accomplish the same thing? No, because after, for example, rook here, after check, the king can go back, and after check again, it will be win, but the king was able to get away. Right? And now you have to go here, and the king was able to plead the same. Although it will also win, but why make it hard for yourself, especially if the time is ticking, right? Make sure that you find the most precise continuation so that you don't waste time. Your opponent might suddenly come back with a vengeance, right? So you might as well finish it off. So that's the correct rook lip. Now the threat is clear, and black has to resign all in 10 moves. What was my inspiration in this game? I'm planning to give 4 games this morning. Okay? The inspiration of this game is based on an 1858 game by Paul Morphy against Count Isard. Right? And let's see, this was played in Bien in Paris. And I would like to show it quick before I proceed to the second game of mine. So anybody have question on that game?
This game, what is the speed? Is it what speed limitation?
The time is 1 move a day.
Oh, 1 move a day.
Yes, 1 move a day, and
So
it's like a correspondence. Okay, so
So the Blitzkrieg factor is just the idea of the attacking, constantly attacking.
the factor of Blitzkrieg is the principle of rapid development. Right? We need to develop our forces immediately in the game so that they could create an effect in the position. So here is the game that inspired me, and a lot of the viewers are probably aware of this game by Paul Morphy. One of Paul Morphy's most famous game. It goes like this: e4 to e5, knight f3, d6. You remember the similarity with my game?
Yeah.
And now Paul Morphy played d4, just like what I did. I was following in his footsteps. But here, the Count Isard played bishop g4. I believe it violates the opening principles of knights first before bishops. Right? After capture, here we capture. Because if he captured with the pawn, then queen takes, he lost the right to castle, and I can recapture the pawn, correct? Everybody follow that? If pawn takes, queen takes queen, king takes, and now we have knight takes pawn, and white wins a pawn with a better position.
And king can't count.
King cannot castle on black. So everybody follow that. Let's go back. So instead,
If the queens are off the board, is it really necessary to press it?
very good question. Then in position where the queens are off, sometimes the king being in the center helps the one that wants to, instead of castling, bring it immediately to the center of the board where the battle is, where there's no more heavy artillery, right? And so here, but what makes it different is white is up and ahead of pawn. So that rules out everything. So instead, bishop takes knight, queen takes, and only then Morphy's opponent captured the pawn. Now here, with regards to principles of opening development class, find your best continuation.
Check.
That doesn't fall into the category of rapid development.
Well, you take the bishop.
White to move,
But that gives the bishop, right?
bishop out.
Bishop.
With check, it said bishop check, f6 gains a tempo on your bishop.
What about bishop?
Knight c3.
Now, you said bishop g5? No, it's not possible. I'm sorry, that's a queen.
No, the F bishop.
Bishop to G5, again C6.
Knight C3.
And pull back to
Knight
C4.
C3.
Knight C3 is playable. Is anything else? What about a mate in 1?
Mate in 1.
A threat. At least there's a threat. Create a threat. Every move needs to have a threat.
Oh. Bishop C4.
Yes. Let's create a threat. Why not? He might not see it. You never know. There's a threat of mate on F7. You know, you have to create a threat. Not simply by development. See, development for development's sake is not good strategy. Your development needs to have an idea, a concept, or a threat. So here, there is a threat in 1. Bishop, Knight F6 was played.
Isn't that called fool's mate?
Yes, fool's mate. So now here, I would like to introduce you to a double attack. You have to find the move. Next, Morphe's next move.
Bishop
Bishop G5.
Bishop G5 is what I played on the previous game. This one, it doesn't work here.
Queen
Queen
to B3.
B3. A double attack on
Oh.
Oh, on B7.
and F7. Beautiful, right? You learn a lot in this classic gems. So how should black defend this?
Queen.
How? Queen D7?
Queen E7.
Queen E7 was played so that in case queen takes pawn, he could minimize the damage by queen B4 check. Because there's no way, if there's no check, there's, for example, queen D7, queen takes here,
Alright.
and after queen C6 to save the rook, we have bishop B5, queen is gone. And so, Morphe's opponent instead went for queen E7, and for example, white continued with queen takes pawn, threatening the rook on A8, which is hard to defend for black, but he has this resource, queen B4 check, and after queen takes, bishop takes check, and after probably C3, what we have is just a one pawn disadvantage for black, which is enough to win for white anyway. But Morphy, knowing of his prowess and how good he is, and I think we should learn from him. You see, he ignored a little pawn. Right? It doesn't distract him to his concept of rapid development. Instead, he played, bringing more force into the game.
Knight C3.
Knight C3. Now, we have the threat of your bishop G5 will come in very strong, and knight D5. You see the coordination. It has to be coordinated and in harmony. So black's move is now basically force. He has to prevent a piece coming there on B5 or D5 by C6. So if you can force your opponent to play pawn moves, which is considered a waste of time sometimes, if you can play development moves, right? After C6, white proceed with
Castle.
bishop G5. Again, castle is wrong. On my game earlier, if you castle kingside, it will ruin all white's plan. So bishop G5. Okay. After bishop G5, the idea of Morphy was to castle on the queen side again with an open D file immediately. All right, go ahead.
So, don't change the pieces. I don't want to waste the time. But
Yes.
Just if you'd gone out with the bishop in the beginning to get the check,
Mm-hmm.
then blocked by the pawn,
Yes.
backs up to where it is now.
Mhm.
Let's say he takes that B pawn, comes back to threaten the bishop again.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, never mind. That wouldn't work.
By the way, that is what Morphy's opponent did right now. B5. Now, you know, at first look, it seems like black was able to wriggle out of this his dilemma, of the problem that he is into, right? But Morphy's seen deeper. Anybody? Knight takes B5.
Oh.
Right?
So he gets 2 pawns.
2 pawns with an attack, and the king is stuck, the bishop is stuck, the rest of the pieces are still frozen in the background. So is the sacrifice justified? Yes. Right?
Because you get a check.
You get 2 pawns. You put your opponent into a very difficult defensive position. The king gets stuck. The bishop is tangled with the queen, and the rook won't be able to find the light of day for the next, few moves. And black defended with knight bd7. Okay, now class, next move.
Castle.
We're queenside at the same time.
Queen side.
You see now the effect of this game on me? How this game, when I studied it years ago, is still in my mind embedded. And in my own game, I was able to introduce the same idea of pawn morphe, castle queenside. So after castle queenside, black played RD8. Okay, after RD8, principle of rapid development. Everybody is part of the fight, included in the war, included as a team, except for one.
How about a rook lift?
This rook here on the corner is enjoying, he's watching TV at home. Right, so might as well put him into work.
Watching you on YouTube.
Oh, so Morphe here played the dazzling with the idea of bringing this rook into play. Rook lift is good enough probably, and then double. But that is one tempo short. Alright? A blitzkrieg is our idea. The essence of time. The element of time is very important because time is gold in chess. One misstep is the end of you. What you have built up this past previous time suddenly will go into ruin if you don't follow up with regards to time.
Would queen a4 like help at all?
Queen a4 will probably create more ordinary mortals like you and me will probably just play queen a4 or rook d3, right? But this is pawn morphe we were talking about. So rook takes d7,
Wow. Why didn't you take with the bishop?
right? Because,
The bishop keeps.
good question, with the rook, you force the exchange and the bishop maintains the pin because the pin is mightier than the sword. That's the pen, by the way. So, here, how do you recapture? You cannot recapture with the knight because of the pin. Pin, pin, and mighty pins. Queen cannot because you just captured the queen and black lost. So only move. Rook takes. And that brings you to this guy in the corner coming in with
Rook slide.
tempo. Again. And now the threat is very strong. Capture the d7 because black cannot recapture because the knight is pinned. Therefore, black's next move is dictated by this bishop here. He has to get out of the pin, so he played challenge. Let's swipe queens. Come on. Remove some of the problem. But here, this is what made the evergreen game of pawn morphe after his next move. Anybody sees this before?
Bishop takes.
Check with the
Bishop takes d7.
Bishop takes rook.
Check.
Check.
Check. The only way to recapture is
Is
The knight.
with the knight.
the knight.
And now,
Queen b8.
queen b8 check.
And
The dazzling
Knight
queen
takes.
sacrifice.
Knight takes is the only one.
And knight takes is the only move. And now we deliver.
Shotmod.
Very beautiful game by pawn morphe. Right? You have to study the classic. And that's why I tell you, when I studied this, it retained its freshness in my head, and I was able to apply it in that game that I just shown. Another game. Okay, I promise I'll give 4 games today. So sit tight, relax, and let's go to the third game for today.